Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your mate Valstride, and today we're going to be taking a look at my top 5 recommendations for farming the arena. Let's check it out. Alright, so we'll jump straight into it, but I do want to put a quick caveat on this one. The team all the way up at number 1 is by far better than all of the other teams. It's not even close. The gap between 1 and 2 is massive compared to the gaps between 2, 3, 4, and 5. However, I still think it's worth talking about all of the pals on this list because for one, I expect them to be eventually nerfing the team all the way up at number 1, even if it is somehow specifically in the context of the arena. And for 2, you might not have access to the pals at number 1. So if you don't, one of these other 4 teams might be more suitable for you if you just want to jump in and start farming those battle tokens. If you do want to skip ahead though, the timestamps will be in the description down below. Feel free to do so. Otherwise, let's check out number 5. Okay, so for team number 5, we're looking at 1 Neptilius and 2 Finsider Ignis, and I like this team for a variety of reasons. So first of all, by bringing 3 water pals, we're going to be really strong against the Black Marketeer and the Moonflower Yonin, who are the 2 most difficult opponents in the arena. So with the Black Marketeer, you've got a good chance of getting at least 1 Blazamut, if not 2, and the Moonflower Yonin has Bushy Knocked, Sutseer, and Blazehouse. So we're going to get the type advantage in those matchups. And the other really nice thing about using all water pals is that you get more advantage out of your support whistles. So I'm using water support whistle 1 and 2, and this is going to be a principle that applies to all of the teams that we look at today. You'll probably see a lot of people doing this where they just stack 3 of the same pal in their arena team. And part of the logic behind that is that you maximize the advantage you get from your whistles. Because you can imagine if we had 3 different pals here, like we had a grass pal, a fire pal, and a dark pal, then we're not going to be able to use a whistle that benefits all 3 of them. So I'm using 2 support whistles of the water element, and then I'm using the attack support whistle 2 and the defense support whistle 2. And then for the food, I'm using the Mammoris curries. But I did actually forget to feed this team the Mammoris curry in my testing, and they still cleared 20 fights without a single failure, and that included 2 fights each against the Black Marketeer and the Moonflower Yonin. So this team's probably even better than I'm giving it credit for. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. But as for the actual builds for each of these pals, for Neptilius, we're running Curtain Splash, Hydra Slicer, and Thalassonic Laser. Now you could swap out Curtain Splash for Holy Burst and it would still do really well, but I wanted to have 3 water attacks so that I got the most benefit out of the Lunka passive. So you can see I've gone with Lunka, Demon God, Legend, and Serenity, because Lunka is going to give us an extra 20% defense, but it is also going to give us 20% to water attacks specifically. Now, I really like this one because that defense is really important in the arena, because one of the biggest fail points is having those Moonflower Yonins and those Black Marketeers burst our pals down really quickly. So survivability really is the name of the game. And then for the Finsider Ignis on the first one, I'm running Lunka as well because I've got 2 water attacks. I've gone with Trigger Happy and Hydra Slicer. I have opted for Flame Funnel here because we get the stab damage, because Finsider Ignis is both a water and fire power, which is really nice because we resist those fire attacks. And Flame Funnel is just an incredibly good high DPS attack. So I've gone with Flame Funnel here. I also wanted more single target damage because that's sort of the role that these Finsiders play. So the Neptilius is mostly focused around AoE, but this Finsider is going to do more single target damage. Trigger Happy is one of the best single target attacks in the game, even after the nerf. So that's going to be really nice. And the reason that's important is because some enemies will be really weak to AoE, but others will not. The Moonflower Yonin, for example, is not weak against AoE. All of his pals are really small, so you want high single target damage there. But then for the Black Marketeer, you want a lot of AoE damage because he's got all of those big pals. So it's good to have a nice mix so that you can sort of cover all bases in that respect. But again, we're going with 2 water attacks here, so I've gone with Lunka. And then for the final Finsider, I've actually gone with Serenity and Musclehead instead of Serenity and Lunka, and then I've still got Demon God and Legend. And the reason for that is because I'm running Meteor Rain and Holy Burst here, so I'm bringing in that extra AoE damage, but I'm still holding on to Trigger Happy for the extra single target. And the other nice thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that their survivability is really good because Finsider is really small, and that's a massive advantage because it protects your team from enemy AoE damage. So you'll be seeing on screen now my Finsider just eat a Holy Burst from the Black Marketeer. Like, he takes no damage at all. So the survivability on this team is fantastic. Definitely one of my favorite teams and worth a spot on the list. But we're moving on to team number 4, and this one is a combination of 1 Bastigor and then 2 Salines. And this is a little bit of a weird one. I know this goes against the principle that we just talked about, where you want to stack all of the same typings so that you get the most advantage out of your accessories. But I tried triple Salines here. Like, this team initially started off as triple Salines, and there was just something missing. So I did a lot of testing and swapped this third pal out for a whole bunch of other pals, but the one I liked the most ended up being Bastigor, and the reason for that is because the role that Bastigor fulfills on this team is crowd control, so I wanted a bit of CC, and the reason for that is because the Salines already do enough damage output, even just with 2 of them. The damage output was not the problem with the triple Salines. The moveset I've gone for was Holy Burst, Meteor Rain, and Airblade, and the reason I even wanted to play around with Salines in the first place is because I would get those stab damage, Holy Burst, and Airblade. So tons of damage there. If you've used Meteor Rain in the arena, you're going to know how good that is. It fans out really well. It burns the enemy, so it prevents that passive health regeneration. But the problem with that team, I feel, was as the fights went on and after you got your initial burst done, all of the enemy pals would be spread out. So you'd be throwing a Holy Burst on just a single pal over there and another one over there. And the Meteor Rains might even be spread out enough such that the waves weren't hitting more than 1 pal at a time or 1 enemy at a time. So that's where Bastigor comes in and starts off the fight with a big glacial impact, which has a good chance of freezing 1 or 2 of the enemies and keeping them all in place. So by freezing them, you guarantee at least 1 massive burst of your Holy Burst hitting everything, of all of your Meteor Rains hitting everything, and it just keeps the enemy nice and clustered. But the other massive benefit of constantly freezing the opponents was it meant there was less incoming damage from the enemy Pal Tamer, and I found this was especially useful in the Black Marketeer fight because the Bastigor was constantly freezing the Black Marketeer himself, so the minigun wasn't shredding apart my pals as often as it otherwise would. So it was really nice there, and honestly, this team didn't really struggle with the Black Marketeer at all because all of their pals were susceptible to the Salines AoEs. Salines Holy Burst just shredded those pals apart. I think the hardest fight for this team was the Moonflower Yonin, or honestly, probably even the Metal Merchant, because the Metal Merchant still has that minigun that does a lot of damage, but his pals are a lot smaller, so the Salines weren't quite as effective. But to bring it back to the Salines, the other thing I really liked about these was that they seemed to do really well against the Moonflower Yonin specifically because he had a hard time hitting them. I don't know if I was just getting lucky or if it's something to do with the flying animation from the Saline, but his melee attack was just not connecting maybe 50% of the time. So that made that fight a lot easier because that's where most of the damage output comes in that fight. And I actually ended all of my Moonflower Yonin fights by taking the Yonin down himself, and I think that is thanks to all of that AoE and the Meteor Rains always just constantly chipping away at the Yonin's health. Let's take a look at team number 3, and if you guys enjoy the content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps support the channel a lot. And this one's going to be good for similar reasons because just like with the Salines, the Turtical Terrors are going to be really good at dodging the Moonflower Yonin's attacks. Now, in part, that is because they're incredibly small, so they have a teeny tiny hitbox, but it's also going to be thanks to this Curtain Splash attack, which knocks the enemy into the air, and if that enemy happens to be the Moonflower Yonin, while he's trying to do one of his katana swipes, then he's just going to fly right over the top of your pals and completely miss them. In addition to that, we're also running Hydra Slicer just because it's another fantastic water attack, so we're going to get the stab damage. We are, of course, a water pal, so we're maintaining that type advantage over the Moonflower and the Black Marketeer, and I am going to keep harping on that because they really are the gatekeepers for what makes a good arena team. If you can beat those guys, you can beat everything else, no worries. And then for our final move, we've got Stone Beat because stab damage ground attack that does a whole lot of damage. It's really nice to open up with this. When you get triple or double Stone Beats opening up the fight, you just chip away so much of the opponent's health. And then for the passives on both Toticals, I've just got the usual set of Musclehead, Demon God, Legend, and Serenity. But then we've also got the Knock'em, and this one is a little bit cheeky because all of the teams on this list are designed to be AFK, and this one still is usable AFK, but it's just like you've got one extra step at the start of the fight where you want to activate your Knock'em's ability. And the reason I think it's important for your teams to be able to beat the fights AFK is because that's the best way to farm the arena. Let's be honest, no one wants to sit there and actually grind it 1,000 times over while they're getting involved in the fight. And just like with the Black Marketeer Moonflower Yonin principle, if you are getting involved in the fight as a player, then you can pretty much bring any pals you want because the fight's going to be easy. So we're looking for teams that can beat those two opponents AFK. Essentially, that's my criteria for what makes a good team. So I'm still going to count this team as AFK, but you do want to activate Nocklem's ability as soon as you get in the fight, and then you can move over and watch YouTube or whatever it else is you're doing on your second monitor. But the moveset for this is going to be Rock Burst, Flame Funnel, and Holy Burst. Now, I've played around with this a little bit. You're probably better off with Stone Beat, to be honest. I'm just going to change this. You're better off with Stone Beat so that you can get the triple Stone Beat. Through all my testing, I used Rock Burst and it worked just fine. Rock Burst is going to do more damage if you happen to get a really good Rock Burst, like if Nocklem is in melee range of a couple of opponents and you get all of those bursts hitting them at the same time. But Stone Beat is probably going to be more consistent across all of your fights. And then we're running the same set here. We've got Legend, Demon God, Serenity, and Musclehead, so nothing changing over there. However, one thing I am doing differently for this build is using double Support Whistle 2. So I've got the Ground Support Whistle 2 and the Water Support Whistle 2, and it's just because we have such a high density of water and ground attacks. So Nocklem's got the Stone Beat here, or what was formerly the Rock Burst, which is going to do a lot of damage. And then we've got the Stone Beats on the Tentacles, as well as their 2 water attacks. So there's just a high enough amount of consistency throughout the entire team to justify 2 Support Whistles. I don't know if that is necessarily optimal, but it's worked fine for me. You get plenty of damage output, and one thing this team has going for it is incredibly bulky naturally, so you don't need that defense whistle as much. This team is really, really tanky. That's one of the nice things about it. Now, one thing I'm actually not sure of with this team is whether or not Tentacle's ability to increase the attack stat of your ground pals is effective for the entire team within the arena. It might be effective for the Nocklem because it's your lead pal, hence you can use its ability. But I don't know if it actually boosts the other Tentacle. So I don't know if these guys boost each other. If you know the answer to that, let me know in the comments down below. We made it all the way to team number 2, and this is a triple dragon team. We've got a combination of 1 Orsurk and then 2 Jetragons. And the idea behind this one is pretty simple. We just want to maximize the damage that we can possibly do with our Meteor Rains. So we've got these triple stab Meteor Rains, we've got triple stab Beam Slicers, so the AoE is off the hook. And I'm using Orsurk here so that I can use 1 Lightning Bolt because it has a really good effect where it stun locks a lot of the opponents and keeps them in place. It lowers your incoming damage because they're all frozen for a few seconds, and it sort of keeps them clustered. You're going to be seeing some B-roll footage on screen now where all of the enemies are stun locked in my Lightning Bolt while the Meteor Rain fans just melt through them, the Beam Slicers hit all of them, and then the Holy Burst just finish them off in a matter of seconds. So it's a really good combo there. And honestly, that's the reason I'm using an Orsurk at all, is just to get these stab damage lightning bolts to give a little bit of control to the fight. Otherwise, I'd just be using triple Jetragons because they're a little bit bulkier, and that was initially a problem I had with the all dragon team. I wanted to try the triple Orsurk team, but in all of my testing, it kept failing against the Moonflower Yonin. I know it's a really good team if you are involved in the fight because you can use your rocket launchers to sort of negate the Moonflower Yonin. But if you're trying to do it AFK, the Orsurks were just getting cut down every single time. I failed that fight at least 4 times in my testing, so that one was no good. They're not bulky enough. Jetragon got the job done though. It's a little bit bulkier. So I went with the triple Jetragons. You get a little bit more damage output as well. The moveset I'm using on these guys is Meteor Rain, Beam Slicer, and then Holy Burst, so you get that nice AoE damage. I have got an Alpha Jetragon here. I wouldn't do that if I were you, if you've just got a normal one, but I didn't have a normal one on hand. And then that's pretty much the gist of it. As for the inventory on this one, I'm using the Dragon Support Whistle 2, not the Dragon 1. I'm using the Defense Support Whistle 1 instead, just to add to more bulk, because like I said, the issue with this team is not the DPS. I was just a little bit worried about them being too squishy, especially having that Orsurk around, because I was initially failing with that testing. All the way up at number 1, you guys knew this was coming. We've got triple Hatalis. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because this one's really straightforward and a little bit boring, to be honest. There's nothing to really analyze. Go ahead and get yourself 3 of these dudes. Give them all Purifying Light. That's it. That's the only attack you need. This is just going to one-shot everything in the arena. So it's a fantastically efficient way to farm the battle tokens. And I know that everything we've talked about today can complete the arena AFK, but this one just feels particularly broken and particularly unbalanced. So I do eventually expect them to be nerfing it, or at least I'm hoping so, but time will tell. going to do it for this one. Let me know which of these teams was your favorite in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.